We live in an age of instant gratification. Your phone pings, and a tiny rush of anticipation shoots through your body. You open a streaming platform, and within seconds a new series starts autoplaying. A swipe, a click, a tap, little bursts of rewards stacked on top of one another. It's easy to feel like you're in control, but in reality, much of modern life is designed to keep you coming back for more. We're caught in a cycle of quick highs, like mice pressing levers for pellets. Our brains, wired for survival in a world of scarcity, now swim in an ocean of abundance, and the very system meant to guide us, dopamine, has become hijacked. I didn't always think about dopamine. Like most people, I consider my choices as purely personal and under my willpower. But over time I noticed how hard it was to resist just one more scroll, just one more treat, just one more purchase. Maybe you felt it too. The slow erosion of focus, patience, and contentment. You sit down to work, but check your notifications before you even start. You promise yourself a small break and end up lost in a digital rabbit hole. You eat for comfort, shop for relief, binge for escape, and still end up restless. What's happening to us? The answer lies in how our brain's reward systems are being manipulated. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, one of the brain's chemical messengers that helps signal pleasure, motivation, and learning. It's essential for survival. When our ancestors hunted or gathered food, dopamine rewarded them with a sense of anticipation and satisfaction. But in today's world, things that trigger dopamine aren't necessarily aligned with long-term well-being. They're engineered to be more intense, more accessible, and more frequent than anything we evolved to handle. In short, we're overdosing on dopamine hits without realizing it. This book is about stepping out of that trap. It's about reclaiming your mind from the algorithms, products, and habits designed to keep you hooked. It's about understanding your brain deeply enough to work with it instead of against it. You won't find here a set of judgmental rules telling you to live like a monk or delete all your apps. Instead, you'll discover why quick highs lose their power, how the brain adapts, and what practices restore balance and control. My goal is to give you a roadmap to a calmer, more focused, more rewarding life, not by denying pleasure, but by learning how to choose it wisely. Imagine waking up in the morning and not immediately reaching for your phone. Imagine enjoying a meal without the urge to photograph it or scroll between bites. Imagine work or creative projects that feel deeply satisfying, not constantly interrupted. These aren't impossible dreams. They're natural states your brain can return to once you reset its reward system. The way back isn't about more willpower, but about understanding how to lower the noise and recalibrate the signal. You'll learn why deprivation can sometimes feel good, why small discomforts build resilience, and why true pleasure comes from balance, not excess. I'll be honest, I'm still on this journey myself. Writing this book hasn't magically made me immune to temptation, but I have learned enough to see my own patterns, to pause before reaching for the next hit, to enjoy the space between rewards. And I've seen how these practices can transform others too, friends, clients, and readers who thought they were simply bad at self-control, but discovered their brains were doing exactly what they were designed to do. Once they understood the science and applied some simple tools, they felt freer, calmer, and more alive. Each chapter in this book builds on the last. We'll start with the science of dopamine, how it works, why it's so powerful, and how it shapes your choices. Then we'll explore the ways modern life hijacks this system, from social media to processed food to constant novelty. Next, we'll dive into strategies for breaking free, resetting your brain's reward pathways, building tolerance for discomfort, and designing an environment that supports your goals. Along the way, you'll hear real-world examples, practical exercises, and reflections from people who've walked this path. By the end, you'll have not just information, but a toolkit for living in a dopamine-saturated world without being enslaved by it. This isn't about becoming a hermit. It's about learning how to choose your pleasures instead of letting them choose you. It's about rediscovering the joy of focus, the richness of delayed gratification, and the deep satisfaction of being present. In a culture obsessed with the next hit, that might be the most radical act of all. If you're reading this, some part of you is ready. Maybe you're tired of feeling distracted. Maybe you're worried about your kids or your health. Maybe you're simply curious about why you do what you do. Whatever brought you here, you're not alone. You're living in a world where the odds are stacked against your attention and self-control, but you also have a brain capable of change. With knowledge, practice, and patience, you can take back control of your dopamine and, with it, your life. Chapter 1. When I first started paying attention to dopamine, it felt almost invisible, like some secret code running under my choices. Why did I keep checking my phone even when I didn't want to? Why did a cookie taste so good for the first bite and so bland by the third? Why could I sit down to work with the best intentions and still end up scrolling social media 30 minutes later? I had always believed these behaviors were about discipline or personality. But once I understood dopamine, I saw a different picture. I realized that what felt like personal failure was really my brain's natural chemistry responding to an unnatural environment. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. It's less about pleasure itself and more about wanting, anticipation, and motivation. It's the spark that tells your brain, that thing over there is good. Go get it. In our ancestral past, this system kept us alive. If you were hungry and saw berries, dopamine fired to push you to pick them. If you were lonely and heard voices, dopamine pushed you toward the group. It's a system wired for scarcity, where each small reward mattered for survival. But our modern environment isn't scarce. It's overflowing. And the same mechanism that once kept us alive now often keeps us restless, craving, and dissatisfied. One of the most important things to understand about dopamine is that it responds to contrast. Your brain has a baseline level of it. When something pleasurable happens, a bite of food, a like on a post, a text from a friend, you get a surge. But after the surge comes a drop, a little dip below baseline. This is why you might feel a momentary thrill after buying something online, then a faint emptiness a few minutes later. It's also why tolerance builds. The more you stimulate your dopamine system, the more it adapts. What once felt exciting becomes normal. You need more to get the same effect. This is the cycle that drives addiction, but also the subtler habits of modern life. The endless scrolling, the constant snacking, the compulsive checking. You've probably noticed how this feels in your own life. Think of the last time you opened your favorite app. Before you tapped, there was a flicker of anticipation. Maybe your heart rate picked up slightly. That's dopamine. Then you scrolled and saw something interesting. Another little burst. But after a while, the feed felt flat. You put your phone down, maybe even felt a twinge of irritability or boredom. That's the dip. The brain has overshot, and now it wants to return to baseline. In that moment, reaching for the phone again feels like relief. But really, it just restarts the cycle. This is why willpower alone so often fails. You're not weak. You're wired this way. The system is ancient, automatic, and largely unconscious. And in the 21st century, it's being triggered hundreds of times a day by things far more potent than our ancestors ever encountered. Highly processed food delivers sugar, fat, and salt in combinations nature never offered. Social media delivers novelty, approval, and outrage on an endless loop. Streaming services remove natural stopping points. Even dating apps can turn human connection into an addictive slot machine of potential matches. The result is a brain in a constant state of stimulation, chasing quick highs and rarely finding satisfaction. Understanding this isn't about blame, it's about freedom. When you see that your urges are shaped by dopamine, you stop taking them so personally. You can start to create space between the impulse and the action. You can notice the flicker of anticipation and choose not to follow it. This is the first step to taking back control. The second step is understanding how to reset your system. What's fascinating is that the same mechanism that gets us hooked can also help us heal. Dopamine is about learning. It's how the brain records what's rewarding and what's not. If you deliberately reduce quick hits and tolerate a bit of discomfort, your brain will recalibrate. It will start to respond more strongly to natural rewards, real connection, meaningful work, genuine rest. But at first it feels hard, even painful, because you're pushing against a chemical pattern. Think of it like a muscle that's been overused in one way and has to be stretched in another. I remember the first time I tried a dopamine fast. Not a total deprivation, but a conscious break from quick hits. I deleted a few apps, avoided processed sugar, and gave myself long walks without headphones. The first couple of days were awful. I was restless, irritable, even a little sad. My brain kept reaching for stimulation that wasn't there. But slowly something shifted. I started noticing things I'd been too distracted to see. The sound of birds, the feeling of air on my skin, the texture of food when I ate slowly. Work felt clearer. Conversations felt deeper. Pleasure returned to things I'd forgotten could be pleasurable. That was my first glimpse of what life looks like when dopamine isn't constantly hijacked. You don't have to do anything extreme to start this process. Just noticing is powerful. Begin by observing your own dopamine loops. When do you feel that flicker of wanting? When does pleasure quickly fade into emptiness? When do you reach for another hit without thinking? Write it down. Be curious. This isn't about judging yourself, but about mapping your brain's patterns. Once you see them, you can begin to experiment with small changes, pausing before you open an app, delaying a snack, turning off autoplay. Each little break is a signal to your brain. Things are changing. This chapter might feel like a lot of science, but at its heart it's about hope. You're not broken. Your attention span isn't doomed. Your motivation isn't gone forever. Your brain is plastic, meaning it can change. The same dopamine that has been pushing you toward quick highs can, with patience, help you build habits of deep satisfaction. You can learn to use it as a compass rather than a leash. As you move through this book, you'll start to see a pattern. The modern world offers us intense rewards without much effort, a surge without the slow build. But the richest forms of pleasure, the ones that last, require some patience and often some discomfort first. A meaningful relationship takes time. A creative project requires focus. Physical fitness needs repetition. At first, these things don't give a big dopamine hit, but over time, as your brain recalibrates, they become sources of deep, steady satisfaction. In the next chapters, we'll explore exactly how modern life hijacks our dopamine system, and then how to reset it step by step. For now, just hold this idea. There's nothing wrong with you. The restless, distracted feeling you've been carrying isn't a personal failing. It's a predictable response to an environment designed to exploit your wiring. And because it's predictable, it's changeable. You can choose to step off the hamster wheel of quick highs and rediscover what real pleasure feels like. Chapter 2. When you begin to look at the modern world through the lens of dopamine, you start to see it everywhere. It's in your pocket, on your desk, in your kitchen, on billboards, and woven into every part of your routine. We don't just live surrounded by quick highs. We live inside a system that has been deliberately designed to deliver them. It isn't about weak people succumbing to temptation. It's about a culture built on constant stimulation, novelty, and reward. Once you see this clearly, you can no longer pretend it's simply about self-control. You begin to understand that self-control requires a completely different environment than the one we inhabit now. Think of the last time you opened a social media app. The red notification badge, the unpredictable mix of content, the infinite scroll. All of it is engineered to keep your brain's reward circuit engaged. This isn't an accident. Behavioral scientists have worked with designers and marketers to make digital platforms mimic the mechanics of slot machines. Unpredictable rewards, small surges of excitement, constant novelty. Every refresh is a pull of the lever. Sometimes you get a like, a message, a funny video. Sometimes you don't. That unpredictability is especially potent for dopamine. It's what keeps gamblers at the table and users on their phones. Food has gone through the same transformation. For most of human history, food was scarce and relatively simple. Today, the processed food industry uses layers of sugar, fat, salt, and artificial flavor to create bliss points. Combinations our brains find irresistible. Each chip or cookie is a hit of engineered reward, and like digital media, it's designed to bypass your natural stopping points. Foods that used to come with effort, hunting, cooking, sharing, now arrive ready-made and endless. You don't have to gather, prepare, or even chew much. You just open, consume, repeat. Your dopamine system fires, dips, and craves again. Even our entertainment has shifted. Think about how television used to work. One episode a week, at a set time. You'd anticipate it, talk about it, wait. That wait built tension and gave your dopamine system time to return to baseline. Now, with streaming, entire seasons drop at once and episodes autoplay. There's no pause, no effort, no gap between anticipation and reward. The same goes for shopping. You used to browse a store, touch products, and maybe think overnight before purchasing. Now you click and it arrives tomorrow. Anticipation, friction, and patience have been stripped away. All that's left is the hit. It's tempting to think of this as progress, and in some ways it is. We have more comfort, convenience, and access than any generation before. But there's a hidden cost. Our dopamine systems are constantly lit up by rewards that are too frequent, too intense, and too easy. The result is a kind of low-grade addiction, not necessarily to one thing, but to the feeling of stimulation itself. We get restless in quiet rooms, anxious without our phones, bored with simple pleasures. Our brains, once attuned to the slow rhythms of scarcity and effort, now expect constant novelty. And when it isn't there, we feel flat, unmotivated, even depressed. This state isn't just uncomfortable, it reshapes how we live. When you're used to quick highs, everything that requires patience feels harder. Reading a book, having a deep conversation, working through a problem. These things don't give instant dopamine surges. They require focus and delayed gratification. But if your brain is used to fireworks every few seconds, these slower rewards feel dull. You may start to avoid them without realizing why. Over time, this avoidance erodes skills like concentration, self-reflection, and emotional regulation. It can even affect relationships, as you start to expect constant stimulation from other people too. Chapter 3. The first step in breaking free from quick highs isn't about throwing away your phone, canceling your streaming subscriptions, or moving to a cabin in the woods. It's about learning how to reset your brain's reward system gradually and intentionally. This is the point where many people get stuck. They understand what's happening. They know they're caught in a cycle of quick hits, but they either try to quit everything at once and burn out, or they keep waiting for a perfect moment to start and never do. What works is something in between. Small, deliberate changes that gently retrain your dopamine system, one loop at a time. It starts with awareness. In the last chapter, I asked you to observe your dopamine loops. When do you feel the flicker of wanting? When do you find yourself reaching for a hit without thinking? If you haven't done that yet, start now. Carry a small notebook or use the Notes app on your phone. Each time you notice an urge, whether it's to check your notifications, eat a snack, buy something, or open a new tab, pause for just a second and write it down. Don't judge it. Don't try to stop it. Just observe. This simple act of naming an impulse creates a sliver of distance between you and the behavior. That sliver is where change begins. Once you've mapped a few of your patterns, choose one low-stakes habit to experiment with. The goal isn't to overhaul your life overnight, but to give your brain small opportunities to recalibrate. Maybe you decide not to check your phone for the first 30 minutes after waking up. Maybe you eat one meal a day without screens. Maybe you leave your headphones at home for a walk. Pick something manageable, something you can actually do, and commit to it for a week. Expect discomfort at first. The urge to check, snack, scroll, or distract yourself will rise like a wave. Instead of giving in immediately, take a few deep breaths. Feel the restlessness. Let it pass. You're teaching your brain a new pattern. This process works because of how dopamine adapts. When you remove frequent, intense hits, your baseline begins to rise. It doesn't happen overnight. The first few days or weeks can feel flat, like you've lost your spark. But this is the dip before the recalibration. On the other side of that dip, natural rewards start to feel richer again. A simple meal tastes better. A walk feels more alive. A conversation becomes more engaging. This is your brain resensitizing itself, recovering from overstimulation. People sometimes call this a dopamine fast, but that phrase can be misleading. You're not fasting from dopamine itself. You can't. Dopamine is essential for survival. What you're doing is fasting from artificially intense, frequent triggers so your brain can find balance. Think of it like resetting your palate. If you've been eating very salty food, a plain carrot tastes bland at first, but after a while, you start to taste its sweetness. The same principle applies to your reward system. Another key part of resetting is reintroducing anticipation. Quick highs compress the whole cycle of desire, effort, and reward into one instant. You want, you get. But our brains evolved to enjoy the build-up. When you delay gratification by waiting to open a message, saving for a purchase, or planning a special meal, you stretch dopamine over time. This makes the eventual reward more satisfying and teaches your brain patience. You're not depriving yourself. You're making the pleasure richer. Start small. Let a notification sit unopened for a few minutes. Wait a day before buying something. Cook a meal instead of ordering in. Feel the anticipation build. Notice how the experience changes. Effort is another powerful tool. When rewards come easily, they're less meaningful. When you invest effort, physical, mental, or emotional, the reward carries more weight. This is why gardening can be more satisfying than buying vegetables, why writing a letter can feel deeper than sending a text, why finishing a project can feel better than binge-watching a show. The effort creates a sense of ownership and pride. It also changes the way dopamine fires, shifting it from a quick spike to a steady rise. Ask yourself, what's one thing you could earn instead of receive instantly? Maybe it's cooking instead of takeout, walking instead of driving, or finishing a task before rewarding yourself with a break. As you practice these small resets, pay attention to your internal state. You might notice cravings, irritability, or boredom at first. That's normal. But you might also notice moments of unexpected calm, focus, or joy. Write those down too. They're signs your baseline is rising, your brain is healing, and your tolerance for slower rewards is returning. Over time, these moments become more frequent and more stable. You're not just reducing bad habits, you're building a new kind of satisfaction. One mistake people make at this stage is thinking they have to eliminate all quick highs forever. That's neither realistic nor necessary. The goal isn't total abstinence from pleasure, it's balance. Once your brain has recalibrated, you can enjoy quick hits occasionally without falling back into compulsive patterns. It's like resetting your palate so that a treat is truly a treat again, not a daily staple. When you do indulge, you'll enjoy it more and recover faster. Another mistake is going too hard too fast. If you try to quit every stimulating habit at once, you're likely to crash and then binge. Start small. Celebrate small wins. This isn't a sprint, it's a retraining process. Each successful pause, each delayed gratification, each bit of effort is a rep for your brain. Over weeks and months, those reps add up to a stronger, calmer, more focused reward system. As you continue, you may discover that your desires shift. Things you once found boring may start to feel interesting. Tasks you once dreaded may feel satisfying. This is one of the quiet joys of resetting your dopamine system. You rediscover pleasures you thought you'd lost. You may find yourself reading more, moving more, talking more deeply with friends, or simply sitting without needing to fill the silence. These aren't glamorous transformations. They're subtle, but they're profound. They signal that your brain is no longer chasing constant stimulation, but finding balance. The deeper benefit of this process is autonomy. When you're no longer driven by quick highs, you're freer to choose. You can decide when and how to engage with technology, food, entertainment, and work. You can create space for focus, creativity, and connection. You can build habits that align with your values rather than your impulses. This isn't about becoming a monk or rejecting modern life. It's about learning to live in it without being consumed by it. You don't have to do this perfectly. You don't even have to do it all at once. Each small change matters. Each pause before an impulse is a victory. Each moment of boredom you allow yourself builds resilience. Each act of anticipation strengthens patience. Over time, these micro moments reshape your brain, your habits, and your life. And as you reset your dopamine system, You begin to feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Genuine contentment, the kind that isn't dependent on the next hit. By now you can probably see the pattern. Modern life gives us quick highs without effort or delay. The antidote is to reintroduce pauses, effort, and anticipation, not as punishment, but as training. This training resets your baseline, restores your sensitivity to natural rewards, and frees you from compulsive loops. It's simple, but not easy. It takes patience, but the payoff is enormous. A brain that isn't constantly hijacked, a life that feels calmer and richer, and a sense of agency that no notification can deliver. In the next chapter, we'll look more closely at discomfort and why leaning into it, gently and intentionally, can be one of the most powerful tools for reclaiming your brain. Chapter 4. When I first began experimenting with resetting my own habits, I discovered something unexpected. Discomfort wasn't just an obstacle to be endured, it was a teacher. Every time I reached for my phone and stopped myself, every time I chose a walk instead of scrolling, every time I delayed a small pleasure, I met a wave of restlessness. It felt like an itch under my skin. My mind whispered, just a little, it won't matter. But each time I stayed with the feeling, something shifted. The wave rose, crested, and then passed. And behind it, there was a quiet clarity I hadn't felt in years. We've been trained to think discomfort is bad, a signal to stop. If you're hungry, eat. If you're bored, scroll. If you're anxious, distract yourself. Modern life has made this response easier than ever. But the truth is that discomfort isn't an enemy, it's information. It's your nervous system telling you something about your current state. And when you meet it with curiosity rather than avoidance, it becomes a powerful tool for change. This matters because dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about contrast. The surge after a hit feels good partly because it relieves a preceding state of wanting. If you eliminate every small discomfort by rushing to reward yourself, you flatten that contrast. Rewards feel duller, your tolerance rises, and you need more to feel the same effect. But when you allow small discomforts, waiting, boredom, mild hunger, silence, you reset that contrast. You train your brain to handle the dip without panicking, so that real pleasure feels vivid again. You can see this in something as simple as exercise. Few people feel a dopamine surge the moment they lace up their shoes. In fact, starting often feels like resistance, but after the effort, your brain releases a cascade of chemicals, dopamine, endorphins, serotonin, that leave you feeling clearer and calmer. That pleasure is built on effort and temporary discomfort. Without the effort, the pleasure wouldn't be the same. The same principle applies to study, creative work, meditation, and any skill worth learning. The initial discomfort is the gateway to deeper reward. This isn't to say you should embrace suffering for its own sake. The goal isn't to make your life miserable. It's to reclaim your ability to sit with mild discomfort so that you're no longer at its mercy. When you can do that, you're freer. You're not pushed and pulled by every craving. You're not trapped in a cycle of instant relief. You can choose your actions based on your values rather than your urges. That's what control of your brain really looks like. There are practical ways to practice this. One is the urge surfing technique borrowed from addiction recovery. When you feel a craving, to check your phone, to snack, to buy something, pause and picture the urge as a wave. Notice how it rises in your body, the tension in your chest, the thought in your mind, the restlessness in your fingers. Breathe and watch. Most urges peak and fade within minutes if you don't act on them. By surfing the wave instead of fighting it, you teach your nervous system that cravings are temporary. They don't have to control you. Another way is to deliberately build small doses of friction into your life. For example, put your phone in another room when you work. Delete apps from your home screen so you have to search for them. Pay with cash instead of a card for small purchases. Walk to a cafe instead of ordering delivery. These little bits of effort slow you down just enough to notice what you're doing. They also reintroduce the anticipation and effort that make rewards more satisfying. Over time, they build patience and resilience. Physical practices can help too. Cold showers, exercise, fasting, even sitting quietly for a few minutes without stimulation. These aren't punishments. They're ways of training your nervous system to tolerate discomfort. You don't have to do anything extreme. Even 1 minute of cold water at the end of a shower, or 5 minutes of stillness before you check your phone in the morning, can be powerful. Each time you do it, you're proving to your brain, I can handle this. I don't need instant relief. That confidence spills over into every area of life. You might notice something interesting as you do this. Your definition of pleasure starts to change. Things you once ignored, a breeze through a window, the taste of simple food, the sound of someone's voice, start to feel richer. You're not just tolerating discomfort. You're recovering your sensitivity to subtle rewards. This is one of the quiet gifts of leaning into discomfort. By reducing the noise of constant hits, you create space for gentler, more lasting pleasures to emerge. You may also discover that some of your discomfort isn't physical at all, but emotional. Boredom, loneliness, sadness, anxiety. These feelings often drive us to seek quick highs as escape. When you stop numbing them instantly, they can feel overwhelming at first. But here too, curiosity helps. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Sometimes boredom is a sign you're ready for something deeper. Sometimes loneliness is an invitation to reach out for real connection. Sometimes sadness is grief that needs to be acknowledged. By allowing yourself to feel, you create the possibility of responding wisely rather than reflexively. It's worth remembering that your brain evolved for this. Our ancestors had long stretches of waiting, effort, and uncertainty. They experienced hunger before eating, anticipation before reward, and silence before conversation. Their dopamine systems were tuned to these rhythms. In that sense, you're not doing something unnatural by leaning into discomfort. You're returning to a more natural state, one your brain still knows how to handle. It just needs practice. This practice doesn't make you less happy. In fact, it often leads to more happiness, the quiet, steady kind that isn't dependent on constant stimulation. You may find you're more focused at work, more present with friends, more satisfied with small things. You may find that urges still arise, but they don't feel so urgent. You may even feel proud of yourself, not in a flashy way, but in a grounded way, knowing you're no longer being pulled along by invisible strings. I sometimes tell people to think of discomfort as weightlifting for the mind. Each time you resist an impulse or sit with a craving, you're doing a rep. At first the weight feels heavy, but with repetition, you get stronger. And just like muscles, your capacity grows. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt like deprivation becomes freedom. And unlike a quick high, that strength stays with you. Of course, none of this happens overnight. You'll slip. You'll give in to urges. You'll forget to pause. That's okay. Each attempt is practice. Each time you catch yourself and start again, you're rewiring your brain a little more. Over weeks and months, those little changes add up to a fundamentally different relationship with discomfort, reward, and control. As you continue, notice how your life feels. Are you less restless? Do simple pleasures feel richer? Are you more able to focus, to wait, to choose? These are signs that your dopamine system is balancing. They're also signs that you're becoming more resilient, less reactive, and more present. That's the goal of this whole process. Not to eliminate pleasure, but to free it from the grip of compulsive chasing. When pleasure is no longer an escape from discomfort, but a complement to it, it becomes deeper and more satisfying. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to build new habits and environments that support this balance, so that you're not relying on willpower alone, but creating conditions that make freedom your default. Chapter 5. After you've practiced sitting with urges and leaning into mild discomfort, the next step is to shape the environment around you so it supports your goals. Relying on willpower alone is like trying to swim upstream forever. It works for a while, but eventually fatigue wins. Instead, you can make small, deliberate changes to your surroundings so that the path of least resistance becomes the path you actually want to take. Think of your environment as an invisible hand guiding your behavior. If snacks are within arm's reach, you'll eat them. If your phone is on the table, you'll pick it up. If a streaming service autoplays the next episode, you'll keep watching. None of this means you're weak. It means you're human. Your brain is wired to conserve effort and follow cues. The easiest option wins most of the time. Knowing this is empowering because it means you can flip the script. By designing your environment, you can make the healthy, balanced choice the easiest one. Start with your physical space. Look at your room, your desk, your kitchen, your phone. Where are the cues that trigger your habits? Can you make the behaviors you want to avoid harder and the ones you want to cultivate easier? For example, put your phone charger in another room so it's not the first thing you grab in the morning. Move snacks off the counter and put fresh fruit in their place. Set up your workspace so that distractions require an extra step. Logging out of social media, putting the TV remote in a drawer, even installing website blockers during work hours. Each small barrier creates a pause, and in that pause, you regain choice. Equally important is making desired behaviors frictionless. If you want to exercise, lay out your clothes the night before. If you want to read more, keep a book by your bed or on your coffee table. If you want to write, open a blank document before you go to sleep so it's ready in the morning. This principle, adding friction to what you want less of and removing friction from what you want more of, is one of the simplest, most effective ways to change your habits without relying on endless self-control. Another powerful tool is what I call commitment devices. These are structures that lock in your intentions ahead of time, so you're less likely to give in later. You might schedule a workout with a friend, so you're less likely to skip it. You might delete an app entirely instead of just hiding it. You might leave your credit card at home to prevent impulse purchases. These aren't punishments, they're supports. They recognize that your future self, caught in a craving, will be less rational. By making the good choice now, you're protecting that future self from the bad choice later. You can also reshape your social environment. Humans are contagious. We unconsciously mirror the people around us. If your friends constantly scroll, drink, or complain, you'll be pulled in that direction. If they read, exercise, and take breaks from technology, you'll be nudged that way instead. You don't have to cut people off, but you can be intentional about who you spend time with and what activities you do together. Join a class, a group, or an online community aligned with your goals. Surround yourself with people who embody the habits you want, and you'll absorb them naturally. There's a deeper reason this works. Dopamine isn't just triggered by substances or devices. It's triggered by novelty, anticipation, and social approval. Our ancestors learned by watching others. Seeing someone in your circle take a certain action primes your brain to do the same. By curating your environment and relationships, you're not fighting your biology, you're working with it. Rituals can be another form of environmental design. When you anchor a behavior to a time, place, or cue, it becomes automatic. For instance, if you meditate every morning after brushing your teeth, the bathroom becomes a cue for calm. If you journal while your coffee brews, the smell of coffee becomes a trigger for reflection. These anchors help your brain slip into the behavior without negotiation. Over time, they form grooves of habit that run deeper than impulses. It's also helpful to think about your digital environment. Our phones and computers are like infinite buffets of dopamine, but with a few tweaks, you can transform them into tools rather than traps. Turn off non-essential notifications. Move addictive apps off your home screen or log out each time. Use grayscale mode to make your phone less visually enticing. Create separate user accounts for work and leisure. Even something as simple as setting your screen to dark mode at night can reduce stimulation and help you wind down. None of these changes will eliminate temptation, but together they create an environment where you're less likely to slide into compulsive loops. As you do this, be gentle with yourself. This isn't about building a perfect monk-like environment overnight. It's about making small, intentional shifts that stack up over time. Each barrier to a bad habit and each bridge to a good one is like a vote for the person you want to become. You're slowly tipping the scales in your favor. It's also important to remember that your environment isn't just external. Your internal environment, your thoughts, emotions, and self-talk, shapes your behavior too. If you berate yourself every time you slip, you create shame, which often drives more compulsive behavior. If you talk to yourself with curiosity and compassion, you create space for learning and growth. Instead of "I have no self-control," try "I'm learning to change my patterns." That shift alone can reduce the sting of setbacks and make it easier to keep going. When you align your environment with your intentions, something almost magical happens. Willpower stops feeling like a battle. Instead of constantly suppressing urges, you're simply moving through a space that makes the healthy choice natural. You don't have to think about every decision. You've set things up so that your default behavior is also your desired behavior. That's what freedom really looks like. Not having to wrestle with temptation at every turn because temptation is less available, and what you truly want is right there in front of you. As you continue this process, you'll notice that you start to crave the stability it brings. Your mind feels less cluttered. Your habits feel less fragile. You're no longer living at the mercy of every cue or craving. Instead, you're living in a world you've shaped to support you. And because you've built it yourself, it feels like a reflection of who you are becoming. Someone who chooses, someone who acts with intention, someone who is not afraid to take back control. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to use meaning and long-term goals, not just environment and habit, to fuel motivation. Because ultimately, the most powerful antidote to compulsive pleasure-seeking isn't just friction or willpower. It's a sense of purpose that makes fleeting highs look small in comparison. Chapter 6. Up to this point, we've been talking about reducing overstimulation and reshaping your environment. But at some point, you have to ask, what are you going to fill the space with? You can only remove so much before you're left with a vacuum. That vacuum is dangerous, because if it stays empty, your brain will eventually drag you back to old habits just to feel something. The antidote isn't simply less stimulation, it's deeper satisfaction. The most reliable source of that is purpose. Purpose is different from a goal. A goal is something you achieve and cross off a list. Run a marathon, get a promotion, save for a trip. Purpose is an ongoing direction, a reason to get up and keep moving even when it's hard. Goals can give you a burst of dopamine when you hit them, but purpose feeds you steadily. It's like the difference between snacking on candy and eating a full meal. When you're grounded in purpose, the quick highs of modern life lose some of their pull. They're still tempting, but they feel shallow compared to the deeper currents that guide you. Finding purpose isn't about waiting for a lightning bolt of inspiration. It's about paying attention to what consistently matters to you and then arranging your life around it. For some people, that's family. For others, it's creativity, service, learning, building, or teaching. It can even be something as simple as being a reliable friend or a patient parent. The content doesn't matter as much as the feeling. The sense that your actions are part of something bigger than momentary pleasure. When you start to orient your life around purpose, you give your brain a different kind of reward. Instead of short spikes of dopamine, you get a steadier, lower-level release of chemicals like serotonin and oxytocin, the ones associated with connection, meaning, and well-being. It's less flashy, but far more stabilizing. People who volunteer regularly, pursue meaningful work, or commit to a craft often report feeling calmer, more focused, and less driven by impulse. They still enjoy small pleasures, but those pleasures aren't their main source of satisfaction. They've shifted from being chasers to being creators. Purpose also gives structure to discomfort. If you know why you're doing something, you can tolerate the hard parts much more easily. Think of training for a sport or raising a child. Both involve exhaustion, sacrifice, and moments of doubt. But if they're connected to your values, you endure the discomfort because it's in service of something that matters. This is crucial for breaking the cycle of quick highs. Without a deeper reason, discomfort feels meaningless, so you escape it with easy pleasures. With a deeper reason, discomfort becomes growth, and growth itself becomes satisfying. One exercise that helps is to look at your habits through the lens of values. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? Then look at your daily actions. Do they align with that picture? If not, what small shifts could you make? This isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. Each time your actions reflect your values, you're reinforcing your sense of identity. You're telling your brain, this is who I am. That sense of identity is a powerful anchor when cravings come. It's much harder to reach for the quick high when you've committed to being someone who chooses differently. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. In fact, starting small is often more effective. Maybe your purpose for the next month is simply to show up fully for your family dinners, or to mentor one person, or to create something each day. These micro-purposes stack up. They teach your brain that meaning isn't somewhere out there waiting to be found. It's in the small, consistent acts of living intentionally. There's another benefit to cultivating purpose. It changes how you experience time. Quick highs compress time. Hours vanish in a binge watch, a scrolling session, or a junk food spree. Purposeful activity expands time. You become more present. You remember what you did. Days feel fuller but less frantic. You're no longer sprinting from one hit to the next. You're walking steadily in a direction that matters. This shift in time perception itself is calming to the nervous system. It signals safety, steadiness, and sufficiency. It's also worth noting that purpose is contagious. When you're around people who are driven by something deeper than instant gratification, it rubs off on you. You see what's possible. You get a model for how to live differently. This is why communities built around service, learning, or creativity often feel so energizing. They're not just about the activity. They're about the shared sense of direction. If you're struggling to find your own purpose, spending time with purposeful people is one of the best shortcuts. As you experiment with purpose, be patient with yourself. Your first attempts may not feel life-changing. That's okay. The point isn't to find the one perfect calling, but to start practicing living for something beyond quick highs. Each time you do, you're strengthening the circuits of delayed gratification and intrinsic reward. You're rewiring your brain to enjoy the process, not just the peak. Over time, this changes your cravings. The same phone or snack that once felt irresistible may start to feel like noise compared to the satisfaction of working on something meaningful. There will still be setbacks. You'll still get lost in scrolling, procrastination, or old habits. That's part of the process. The difference is that with a sense of purpose, those setbacks feel like detours, not definitions. You have a map. You know where you're headed. You can return to the path more easily because it's anchored in who you want to be, not in fleeting moods. This is why purpose is such a powerful ally in taking back control of your brain. It doesn't just block the quick highs. It makes them less interesting. It gives your dopamine system a more stable baseline. It makes discomfort tolerable. It anchors your identity. And it fills the space that opens up when you start stepping away from instant gratification. If you've been living on quick highs for a long time, purpose may feel far away at first, but you don't have to wait until you figure it all out. Start with one small act that aligns with your values today. Call a friend, help a neighbor, learn something new, make something by hand. Each of these acts is like a drop of water, carving a new channel in your brain. Over time, those channels merge into a river, and that river will carry you much further than any burst of dopamine ever could. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to build resilience, the ability to stay steady and recover quickly when life inevitably throws stress and pain your way. Because even with purpose and good habits, challenges will come, and it's your response to those challenges, not their absence, that determines whether you stay free from the cycle of quick highs. Chapter 7. Even with a sense of purpose, calmer environment, and better habits, life will still hand you stress, setbacks, and pain. These are not signs that you're failing. They're part of being human. What matters is not whether stress happens, but how you respond to it. This is where resilience comes in. Resilience is the ability to absorb difficulty, adapt, and bounce back without falling into the old pattern of numbing yourself with quick highs. It's not about being tough or unfeeling. It's about becoming flexible and steady, like a tree that bends in the wind rather than snapping. Most of us have been conditioned to reach for instant relief when something feels bad. A hard day at work, an awkward social interaction, a wave of loneliness. The reflex is to open a screen, grab a snack, pour a drink, or buy something online. This isn't a moral flaw. It's a learned coping strategy. The problem is that these quick fixes don't actually resolve the underlying stress. They mask it for a moment, then leave you feeling worse. Over time, this erodes your capacity to handle discomfort. The more you avoid, the more fragile you become. Resilience is built by moving in the opposite direction. Instead of automatically escaping discomfort, you practice meeting it. This doesn't mean wallowing in pain or forcing yourself to suffer. It means learning to stay present with unpleasant sensations long enough to let them rise and fall naturally. Emotions are waves, they crest and break. When you allow them to move through you, they lose power. When you resist or numb them, they tend to stick around. Each time you let a wave pass without grabbing for a quick high, you're strengthening the muscle of resilience. One simple but powerful practice is controlled breathing. It may sound trivial, but your breath is a direct line to your nervous system. Slow, steady breathing activates the parasympathetic system, the body's natural calm response. Next time you feel a craving or a surge of stress, pause and take 5 slow breaths. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for a moment, then exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. This sends a physical signal to your body that you're safe. Over time, pairing this with the urge to self-soothe can create a new default, calming yourself instead of stimulating yourself. Another resilience builder is movement. Stress and emotions aren't just mental, they're stored in the body. Physical activity, whether it's walking, stretching, dancing, or exercise, gives your nervous system a way to discharge tension. You don't have to run marathons. Even a 10-minute walk outside can reset your state. Moving your body also releases endorphins, which improve mood without the crash of a quick dopamine spike. In this way, movement is both an outlet for stress and a source of healthy pleasure. Resilience also grows through connection. Isolation magnifies stress. When you're alone with your worries, they can feel overwhelming. Talking to someone you trust, even briefly, can have that weight. It's not about getting advice. It's about being seen and heard. Human connection releases oxytocin, which counterbalances the stress hormone cortisol. It also reminds you that you're not the only one struggling. That difficulty is a shared human experience. This sense of belonging is protective. It gives you a buffer against life's shocks so you don't have to retreat into quick highs. Another layer of resilience is meaning-making. When something painful happens, your mind automatically asks why. If you can connect the pain to a larger story, a lesson learned, a value reinforced, a sign of growth, the stress becomes more manageable. This doesn't mean putting a positive spin on everything or denying your feelings. It means giving the experience context. For example, seeing a failure as evidence that you're trying something new rather than proof that you're inadequate. This shift in framing turns stress into information rather than threat. It's also important to build small rituals of recovery into your life before you need them. Most people wait until they're depleted to think about self-care. Resilience works better when it's proactive. That might mean a regular bedtime, a weekly nature walk, or a few minutes of journaling each day. These practices create a baseline of calm and stability, making you less vulnerable to sudden shocks. They're like the roots of that bending tree, invisible but essential. One of the surprising things about resilience is that it's built in moments, not in heroic feats. Every time you take a breath instead of a hit, go for a walk instead of scrolling, call a friend instead of isolating, you're training your nervous system. You're proving to yourself that you can handle discomfort. Those tiny victories add up. Over months, they form a new identity. Someone who can feel stress without being ruled by it. That identity is powerful because it's self-reinforcing. The more you see yourself as resilient, the more resilient you become. Of course, there will be days when you don't manage it. You'll slip into old habits, binge, scroll, avoid. That's part of the process. Resilience includes the ability to recover from setbacks without self-condemnation. Beating yourself up only adds another layer of stress. Instead, notice what happened, learn from it, and return to your practices. Each return strengthens you. Over time, setbacks become less frequent and less intense because your baseline capacity is higher. As your resilience grows, You'll notice that the quick highs you used to crave start to feel less satisfying, not because you've become a saint, but because your nervous system no longer feels so desperate. You're calmer. You have other ways to self-soothe. You've built a foundation of habits, relationships, and meaning that can absorb stress. In that state, temptation loses its urgency. It's still there, but it feels optional rather than inevitable. This is the quiet power of resilience. It doesn't make life painless. It makes you able to move through pain without losing yourself. It gives you the inner space to choose your response instead of reacting automatically. It's what allows all the other changes you're making. Reducing overstimulation, finding purpose, designing your environment to actually stick. Without resilience, those changes are fragile. With resilience, they become a way of life. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to integrate healthy pleasures, the kinds of rewards that don't hijack your brain but nourish it, so that your life isn't just about avoiding bad habits, but about genuinely enjoying the good ones. Chapter 8. Up until now, much of this journey has been about subtracting, removing overstimulation, creating friction for quick highs, sitting with discomfort, reshaping your environment. Those steps are essential, but they're only half the story. A life built entirely on restraint feels empty and brittle. The goal isn't to strip pleasure away. It's to replace counterfeit pleasure with the kind that actually nourishes you. It's about learning how to enjoy again, but differently. The most striking thing people notice when they step back from quick highs is how flat everything feels at first. Food tastes bland. Walks feel boring. Conversations seem dull. This is withdrawal, but it's also a kind of sensory recalibration. Your brain has been tuned to expect fireworks. Now it's learning to appreciate candlelight. The transition takes time, but on the other side is a deeper, steadier kind of satisfaction. You start to discover slow dopamine, the release that comes not from novelty or intensity, but from effort, connection, and presence. Healthy pleasures share a few traits. They usually involve some degree of effort or skill. They unfold over time rather than all at once. They often have a social or creative component, and instead of leaving you jittery or craving more, they leave you calmer, fuller, more grounded. Think about cooking a meal from scratch, going for a hike, playing music, gardening, volunteering, reading, building something with your hands, or even simply sitting in the sun. These aren't glamorous activities, but they give your brain a balanced cocktail of neurotransmitters, a little dopamine, a little serotonin, a little oxytocin, that stabilizes your mood instead of spiking it. One of the most underrated healthy pleasures is nature. Studies consistently show that spending time outside reduces stress hormones, lowers blood pressure, and improves mood. You don't have to become a wilderness explorer. Even a short walk in a park, sitting under a tree, or tending a few plants can shift your nervous system into a calmer state. Nature offers novelty, but it's gentle novelty. The rustling of leaves, the changing light, the smell of soil. It invites your senses to open rather than overload. Over time, your brain starts to crave this kind of stimulation instead of the digital kind. Another is movement, but approached not as punishment or a means to an end, but as a pleasure in itself. Many of us were taught to exercise to burn calories, look a certain way, or earn a reward. That framing turns movement into a chore. But when you move in ways that feel good, dancing, stretching, cycling, swimming, even slow walking, you start to associate your body with joy rather than self-criticism. Movement becomes a way of tuning your nervous system, shaking off stress, and reconnecting with yourself. It's one of the most reliable sources of healthy dopamine because it combines effort, rhythm, and physical sensation. Creative expression works in a similar way. Drawing, writing, singing, playing an instrument, crafting, or tinkering on a project all light up your brain's reward system without overwhelming it. They also create a sense of agency. You're not just consuming, you're producing. This shift from passive intake to active creation is huge. Passive intake is easy and cheap, but leaves you empty. Active creation takes energy, but fills you with the quiet pride. Even if no one else ever sees what you make, your brain registers it as meaningful effort, and that builds long-term satisfaction. Healthy pleasure also often involves other people. Shared meals, group activities, volunteering, mentoring, or simply spending time with friends without screens can be deeply rewarding. Social interaction, when it's supportive and face-to-face, releases oxytocin and endorphins that buffer stress and increase resilience. It's the opposite of the curated, comparison-driven interactions on social media. Instead of triggering envy or FOMO, it grounds you in belonging. Even small interactions, chatting with a neighbor, thanking a cashier, calling a friend, can deliver this effect. It's a slow but steady way to feed the part of your brain that craves connection. The key to integrating healthy pleasures is intentionality. At first, they may feel underwhelming compared to the quick highs you're used to. That's normal. You're retraining your taste. Just as someone who quits sugar finds fruit sweeter over time, someone who quits compulsive scrolling finds a walk more interesting. But you have to give it time. Schedule these activities. Protect them. Treat them as essential rather than optional. Over weeks and months, your brain starts to associate them with genuine satisfaction, and the old highs lose their shine. It also helps to link healthy pleasures to small rituals. Make tea and sit by a window at the same time each morning. Walk after dinner instead of watching a show. Keep a sketchbook on your coffee table. Play music while you cook. These cues anchor the activities into your day, so you don't have to decide from scratch each time. They become your new defaults, replacing the automatic reach for a screen or a snack. Another important point is to give yourself permission to enjoy. Many people, especially those recovering from addictive patterns, fall into an all-or-nothing mindset. If I can't have my old pleasures, I don't get any. This is a recipe for burnout. Healthy pleasure isn't indulgence, it's fuel. It's how you keep your nervous system balanced so you don't feel so deprived that you relapse into quick highs. Allow yourself small, steady joys. They're not a distraction from your work. They're part of your healing. You'll know you're on the right track when the aftertaste of your pleasures changes. Quick highs leave you restless or ashamed, like eating too much candy. Healthy pleasures leave you with a sense of fullness and calm, like eating a nourishing meal. You finish and you're done. You don't feel compelled to immediately repeat. This is your brain's way of telling you it's receiving balanced input. This shift doesn't mean you'll never enjoy a quick pleasure again. Life is full of small treats, a sweet dessert, a funny video, a spontaneous purchase. The goal isn't to become ascetic. It's to build a foundation of slow, steady pleasure so that the quick ones are truly occasional and optional. When you're grounded in healthy pleasure, you can enjoy a treat without it spiraling into a binge. You're not starving, you're choosing. As you integrate these practices, you may find that your sense of self changes. You're no longer just someone trying to resist temptation. You're someone who actively creates a satisfying life. This identity shift is powerful. It moves you from a mindset of deprivation to one of abundance. You're not just taking things away. You're discovering better things. And that discovery is sustainable because it's aligned with how your brain is built to work. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to sustain these changes over the long haul. How to make this not just a phase of self-improvement, but a way of living that carries you through the inevitable ups and downs of life without losing your balance. Chapter 9. Change feels exciting in the beginning. You clear the apps, cut back on sugar, move your body, and discover the slow pleasures that make life richer. For a while, everything seems under control, but then a hard day hits, an old trigger appears, or your energy dips. Without warning, you find yourself back on your phone, mindlessly snacking, or craving the very thing you swore off. This is the part of the journey where most people give up, believing they've failed. In reality, it's just the stage where maintenance begins, the long-term practice of holding what you've built. The nervous system loves patterns. When you've spent months or years repeating a quick hit behavior, that pattern doesn't vanish overnight. It weakens with disuse. But under stress, it can flare back up. This isn't moral weakness, it's wiring. Your brain learned to reach for instant relief, and under pressure it will reach again. Knowing this makes setbacks less scary. They're not proof you're doomed. They're opportunities to reinforce your new habits. One of the most powerful tools for long-term success is pre-commitment. You plan for your weak moments before they arrive. That might mean having a friend you text when you're tempted, keeping your phone in another room at night, or stocking your kitchen with whole foods instead of junk. It might mean making a public promise, signing up for a class, or scheduling your day so there's less idle time. You remove as many decision points as possible so your environment supports you when your willpower dips. Another tool is self-monitoring. Keep a simple log of your triggers, your successes, and your slips. You don't have to write an essay. A few words or check marks will do. Over time, you'll see patterns. Maybe you scroll most when you're tired, snack when you're lonely, or shop online when you're stressed. These patterns aren't flaws. They're signals about your real needs. When you spot them, you can respond with care instead of autopilot. A walk, a nap, a phone call, or a few minutes of breathing may serve the same function as your old habit, but without the crash. It's also essential to normalize relapse. Recovery from overstimulation isn't linear. You'll have days, even weeks, when you slip back. What matters is how quickly you return. Instead of thinking I blew it, think I'm practicing. Treat every slip as data, not drama. Ask what triggered this. What was I feeling? What do I need right now? This curious, non-judgmental stance is far more effective than self-criticism. Shame is a trigger too, and beating yourself up often leads straight back to the very behavior you're trying to change. As your journey lengthens, another challenge emerges: boredom with the new routines. At first, slow pleasures feel novel. After a while, they can feel ordinary. This is normal. The brain craves some novelty. The trick is to introduce variety without reverting to quick highs. Rotate your activities. Try new recipes, new walking routes, new hobbies. Set small goals inside your routines. Run a bit farther. Learn a new song. Plant a different flower. These small doses of novelty keep your reward system engaged without overwhelming it. Accountability helps too. Humans are social learners. We regulate ourselves better when others see us. This doesn't mean you have to announce your habits on social media. In fact, private accountability is often stronger. It might mean a weekly call with a friend, a support group, a therapist, or even an online community focused on mindful living. When you share your goals and struggles, you reduce the shame that fuels secrecy and relapse. You also gain perspective. You're reminded that you're not alone, that the ups and downs you're experiencing are universal. Another piece of long-term maintenance is self-compassion. This sounds soft, but it's one of the hardest skills to practice. Many people believe they need harsh self-talk to stay disciplined. In reality, harshness increases stress, and stress drives you back to quick relief. Gentle firmness works better. When you slip, speak to yourself as you would to a friend. Okay, I slipped. That happens. Let's get back on track. This doesn't let you off the hook. It helps you stay on the hook without burning out. Over time, these practices change your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone fighting temptation and start seeing yourself as someone living differently. That shift is powerful because identity drives behavior. If you think, I'm trying not to be addicted to my phone, you're in a constant struggle. If you think, I'm a person who values focus and presence, your choices align naturally. This is why rituals and consistency matter. They give you new identity proof. It's also wise to prepare for life's bigger disruptions: travel, illness, stress at work, family crises. These are times when your old habits may roar back. Think ahead. What will I do when I can't go for my usual walk? How will I protect my sleep in a new time zone? Who can I lean on when I'm overwhelmed? The more you plan for the hard times, the less likely they are to knock you off course completely. Another subtle danger is perfectionism. Once you've made progress, you may expect yourself to be perfect. You set rigid rules, panic when you slip, and start thinking in black and white terms. This mindset can be just as harmful as your old habits. Remember, the goal is flexibility, not rigidity. Life is messy. If you treat your new way of living as a set of brittle rules, it will break under pressure. Treat it instead as a set of living practices, adaptable to circumstances, guided by your values rather than fixed numbers or streaks. Eventually, The habits you've built will feel natural. The cravings for quick highs will quiet. You'll still feel them sometimes, especially under stress, but they'll be like faint echoes instead of loud demands. You'll notice that your baseline mood is calmer, your focus steadier, your relationships richer. This is the payoff of long-term maintenance, not a dramatic high, but a steady state of well-being. It's not glamorous, but it's freedom. Maintaining freedom also means staying curious. Keep learning about your brain, your triggers, your values. Read, reflect, experiment. When something stops working, adjust it. When life changes, adjust again. This is how you make your new life resilient, not by locking it down, but by keeping it alive. You may even start to help others. People will notice your changes and ask what you're doing. Sharing your experience reinforces your own habits. Teaching is one of the best ways to solidify what you've learned. It also gives your recovery a purpose beyond yourself, which makes it stronger. In the end, long-term change is less about heroic effort than about gentle persistence. It's the daily decision to choose presence over escape, creation over consumption, slow pleasure over quick relief. Some days you'll get it right, some days you won't. But if you keep returning, over time the scale tips. Your brain rewires. Your life becomes the proof that a different way is possible. In the next and final chapter, we'll bring everything together. The science, the strategies, and the mindset shifts into a roadmap you can carry forward. A way of living that keeps you steady even in a world designed to hijack your dopamine. Chapter 10. After everything we've explored, the compulsions, the cravings, the strategies, and the slow pleasures, it's time to bring it all together. By now, you've seen how modern life floods your brain with quick highs, how those highs hijack attention and energy, and how small, deliberate changes can gradually reclaim control. The journey isn't about perfection. It's about building a life where pleasure, purpose, and resilience coexist in a way that supports your goals and well-being. The first step, as you know, is awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. Recognizing your triggers, your patterns, and the ways your brain has been trained to chase instant rewards is powerful. Awareness is the lens through which all other strategies work. Without it, environment tweaks, habit changes, and resilience practices are like patching leaks without seeing the cracks. With it, every choice becomes intentional. You begin to see not just what you do, but why you do it, and that insight is freedom. The next step is self-regulation, the ability to pause and respond instead of reacting. Willpower alone isn't enough. You need a system. That system is built from 3 intertwined pillars: environment, habits, and purpose. The environment shapes your behavior automatically, removing friction for the actions you want and adding it to the ones you don't. Habits train your nervous system, giving structure and stability to your choices. Purpose provides the long-term motivation that sustains you when willpower is low. Together, they form a scaffold that supports your growth. Resilience is the glue that holds everything together. Life will always challenge you. Stress, setbacks, and boredom are inevitable. Without resilience, those challenges quickly become triggers for old behaviors. With resilience, they become opportunities to practice control, presence, and patience. Resilience doesn't eliminate difficulty, but it changes your relationship with it. You learn to meet discomfort with curiosity rather than fear, to respond with choice rather than compulsion. Each moment of resilience reinforces a deeper identity, that of a person capable of enduring, adapting, and thriving. Healthy pleasures complete the picture. The temptation to chase quick highs doesn't disappear. It never will completely. But the more you fill your life with meaningful, nourishing rewards, the less urgent the cravings feel. These pleasures aren't instant or artificial. They're slow, deliberate, and aligned with your values. Cooking a meal, exercising for fun, reading, creating, connecting with others, spending time in nature. These are the experiences that give your nervous system a balanced dopamine experience, leaving you steady, fulfilled, and present. All of this points to a fundamental truth. Control over your brain isn't about denying yourself life's joys. It's about choosing the kinds of joys that last, that build instead of deplete. Quick highs are seductive because they promise immediate reward, but they steal your freedom and clarity. By stepping back, you create space to experience real, deep satisfaction. You begin to enjoy without becoming enslaved. You choose rather than react. You live intentionally rather than habitually. It's also important to embrace imperfection. You will slip. You will binge. You will scroll endlessly or overindulge at times. That is normal and expected. What matters is not avoiding every mistake, but recovering from them gracefully. Every relapse is a lesson, an opportunity to learn about your triggers, refine your strategies, and reinforce your identity. Over time, slips become rarer and less intense, not because you are perfect, but because your nervous system and habits have recalibrated. Recovery and persistence, not avoidance, are the true measures of success. Integration is the final piece. By now, you've learned strategies in isolation, resisting impulses, restructuring your environment, practicing resilience, cultivating purpose, enjoying healthy pleasures. Integration is about weaving these strategies into a coherent life. Your morning ritual, your work habits, your social interactions, your evenings, all of these can be arranged so that the system you've built works automatically. Integration is what turns a set of practices into a lifestyle, one that doesn't require constant struggle because it supports you even when life is hard. Remember, this is a lifelong process. You won't ever be done, and you don't want to be. Dopamine and pleasure are not enemies. They're part of being human. The key is to understand them, manage them, and align them with your goals and values. Life will always offer distractions, but with awareness, resilience, purpose, and slow pleasures, you'll navigate them with clarity and balance. You won't be perfect, but you'll be free enough to make choices that serve you rather than enslave you. Finally, reflect on the journey itself. By reading this book and applying these principles, you've already taken the hardest step, deciding to change. Change is difficult not because the strategies are complex, but because it requires patience, honesty, and consistency. It demands that you face discomfort rather than flee from it, that you replace noise with stillness, and that you reorient your life around what matters. That effort, sustained over time, compounds in ways that feel almost invisible until you pause and notice. You are calmer, more focused, more fulfilled. You are not living on quick highs. You are living fully. The path forward is not about perfection or deprivation. It's about alignment. Align your habits with your values, your environment with your goals, your pleasures with your long-term satisfaction. Every small choice you make adds up. Every moment you pause instead of react strengthens your identity. Every deliberate act of meaning and connection rewires your brain. This is how you take back control. This is how you become the person who lives intentionally, free from the tyranny of fleeting dopamine hits. So as you close this book, take a deep breath and consider your next step. You don't need a grand gesture or a dramatic overhaul. Start with one deliberate change today. Move your phone away from your bed. Take a mindful walk, call a friend, create something by hand, or sit with an urge without acting on it. That small step is a vote for your future self. And with each step, freedom grows. Over time, those steps accumulate, and you'll find yourself living a life guided not by the next spike of dopamine, but by steady, meaningful satisfaction. You've learned the tools, the science, and the mindset. Now it's time to live them. The world will continue to offer quick highs, but you will no longer be enslaved. You will navigate with intention, choosing what nourishes you and leaving behind what depletes you. This is the quiet power of mastery over your own brain, the real reward at the end of the journey.